So we were with Heather Nufer, and let's start with some of the more standard questions. How did you get into comic writing?
Yeah, I wrote a comic for Fraggle Rock years ago for the Jim Henson Company, and ended up being super successful. And from that, I started kind of snowballing into more comics work.
So once you got in, it was a little bit easier, and
Yeah, the comic was really well received. So when they were looking, after that, I started doing Strawberry Shortcake. And they were looking for somebody with, sort of all ages, younger sensibilities. So work begets work.
so what would you say from your first few stories? Like, was there a lot of excitement? Like, was every story new and interesting?
Yeah, and I still feel that way now. Now it's a little bit more heavy, because back then I wasn't just professional writing, but now I am. So there is always, a sense of how can I make this more exciting both for me and for the person reading it.
What are some of the ways that you found to do that?
I have to leave the house every once in a while. A curse, I think, of being a professional writer is that it's nice that you get to be home all the time, but when you're really into your work, sometimes you don't leave your house as often as you should. So you kind of have to remember to take breaks. Like anybody who works from home will tell you that, just because you work from home doesn't mean you work all the time. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff, like making sure you get enough input from, go to see movies, go to see art shows, just, kind of refill the well, and usually you'll find inspiration.
What are some of your favorites to go back to for inspiration, or like you happen to see it and it just this light bulb went off, I know exactly what you want to do next?
Back to kind of Henson stuff. Labyrinth is a huge inspiration to me to this day. I love any of that Henson stuff, especially Labyrinth. And I love old movies and old TV shows. Anything from the 40s through like the 60s is usually beach movies, stuff like that.
I Love Lucy.
I Love Lucy. I was a huge Lucy fan growing up. I grew up in a town that was next to her hometown.
Really?
Yeah, so I would go on up to the Lucy Fest and
Oh, that must have been fun.
Yeah, it was really wonderful because she was one of the first female comedians that really.
Oh, and that show was such a trendsetter and a genre changer for that kind of thing that we still go back, and it's, usually you say, well, at some point in time someone did something, but no, people go back and say it was I Love Lucy that did something.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful show.
So how does it feel now that people are coming to conventions for your work?
It's bizarre.
Bizarre?
I mean, it's wonderful, and I couldn't be more grateful. To be on the other side is always really interesting. But people are so nice, and it just makes me feel so great that people are connecting with things that I've put a lot of effort and heart into.
So if you could have interviewed Lucille Ball or one of the writers back then, what would you have asked?
Gosh, if I could have interviewed Lucy, I definitely would have asked her, how she herself kind of overcame being a woman in the entertainment industry. We have a lot of issues with that in comics, especially right now. It's a big to-do, and I think, she did it a long time ago, and would probably have some really great insights on how to sort of let go of all of that kind of drama that can come with that.
Well, I didn't realize that there was such a taking of note for that kind of issue in the comic industry. I don't know if you want to talk about it because you're working in that industry.
No, it's well known. Within our industry, it can be a boys' club sort of, and a lot of that is just for a long time. The readership for comics has been perceived as being mostly male. But now all sorts of demographic, studies have shown that, it's like 50-50. And it's something that's very slow to change. It's hard to get women on higher level projects a lot of the time. We talk a lot about Pinktown, where if you're a woman, you get stuck in Pinktown. And I think it's true to an extent. I certainly can pitch for most things that I want to pitch for, as long as they're kid-based or specifically girl-based. But getting out of that is a little bit trickier.
Do you think the My Little Pony comics, since there is such a large male demographic in the brony community, do you think the My Little Pony comics might be have affected that in some way?
Oh yeah, the pony comics and sort of the reception to them has been, I think, an eye-opener in the comic book industry, just because sales on the comics are the pony comics are higher than any superhero comic book. So it's definitely, writing ponies has opened doors for me in comics to let me pitch for properties that they wouldn't necessarily normally want me to pitch for, but everybody wants the pony sales magic. So ponies, has really kind of opened a lot of people's eyes to make them see that, just because things are conceived as like kids doesn't mean it's only for kids, or that it's not really rich in character and story.
That's actually really awesome to hear about.
Yeah.
Wow. What are some of the you said you would like to ask Lucy how she did it back in the day, and obviously you faced some issues, and you talked about the pony comics helping, but what are some of the other things that you've done to overcome Pinktown?
It's gonna sound really simple, but I ask to pitch for things that I want to, even if it's not apparent straight from the get-go that I would be a good fit for it. I think people are afraid to ask for what they want, and I feel like people can be really have this sort of mindset that they'll be plucked from obscurity to do things they want to do.
Or that someone will say, hey, I saw you did this, I really liked it.
Right. And I know from the outside, with a lot of people in comics or any kind of entertainment industry, it seems like we just landed here one day. But it really takes a lot of effort and a lot of work and asking for things you want. Yeah.
Awesome. Have you ever faced a situation where you've pitched an idea and you felt like maybe it didn't go well because of you maybe aren't the right person to write it, or maybe it was a different genre that you were familiar with, or something that you felt landed a little bit short?
Oh yeah, that happens. That happens, I think, with everybody quite a bit. It certainly happened with me. You can pitch and you do your best, and sometimes it's right on. Sometimes it takes a lot of work, and sometimes for whatever reason it's not exactly what they were looking for. And there's not a lot of way to know that. Like, you can pitch for Superman or Wonder Woman and think you have a really great story, but you don't know specifically what they're looking for. So it can be tricky.
I think we'll end with one of those standard interview questions.
All
Where
right.
do you see yourself in the or where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I would love to be still working in comics, but also I'm writing a prose novel right now, and I'd love to do some TV, some animation would be great. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
It was a wonderful interview.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm glad you love Lucy. She was my hero growing up.
And now,
For me, that might be.
I don't know. If you had a fandom name, what would it be?
I don't think I can put a name on myself.
Comic star.
That's quite diva-licious.
Yes. Hey, you got some blonde highlights in there. You can pull it off.
Yeah.
Pie is quite tasty, don't you think?